Rick, you want to come a little closer? Okay. So I have made and sold about 30 of these in the last 9 months pretty successfully. My wife works for a whiskey distillery in town, and so we tend to run with the whiskey crowd, to put it nicely, I guess. This first piece is a cocktail smoker that you set on top of your cocktail glass, and you fill full of wood chips in the little cup, and you use a kitchen torch like you would use to make creme brulee that can fire the flame downwards, and it fills your glass full of smoke. Kind of like smoking food, but you're smoking a cocktail. You can smoke old fashions and smoke whiskey straight and do all sorts of things. I sound like an alcoholic, don't I? And the second one is a cocktail muddler made to match. Both of these are made from oak with black palm highlights. The cocktail smoker, the black palm is let into a groove. And so there's a ring set in there, and to get it to fit in there, I had to snap it in two and glue it back together in the groove. And given the nature of black palm, you especially can't see the break in it where it's glued back together. And you can see my signature on the bottom there, which is done with a laser from last week's presentation. And on the muddler, I don't know if you can see it. There it is. So that makes it art. But so that's a whiskey muddler and cocktail smoker set.
Okay, this is what I used to use. Was a stamp, Tammy Leather, years and years and years ago. If you sent them a model what you wanted, they would make a stamp for you, a metal stamp, until I wore it out. and now I've just signing my pieces situation. So this is what I've switched to, but for years I used that this small one, which then also would hide the center of your bottom of your bowl nicely. That last piece, it's hard to get off situation, but I've gone to just signing and putting the wood name on it.
You've been around long enough, you may remember this piece because it was one of my early ones. It's a mushroom box, and then originally it had an acorn lid, but the acorn top on it apparently has become a cat toy. And I typically do sign my piece on the bottom, and I usually provide what woods it was made with too. Before I did wood, I did a lot of silver work, and I signed my pieces with a Dremel tool. And at that point, the in thing was to have the stamp to do it. So I finally got the stamp, and then the in thing was to sign it with a Dremel tool.
Well, Overland Park is getting rid of all the ash trees, and the guys are really handy on giving you any wood you want, so they don't have to lift it in the truck. And this is here, and this part here used to be the bump on the side, so that's all there is.
I brought enough junk tonight, so I brought a a little piece here instead of anything too big. We're supposed to sign it, right? Is that what we're supposed to do? Okay, good. I signed it. What? Oh, thanks. Yeah, this is how I sign all my pieces right now. Is just I like the simplicity of just like a little maker's mark, like in pottery. So I do this with a knife or with a burning knife. What are those things called? Wood burner. There we go. And it just has a little straight nib in it right there, and I just use that to actually measure out. So it's pretty close on just about all of them. I just got a thinner one, so this one's a little bit thicker, but they're a little bit thinner now on the newer ones that I'm doing. But it's been pretty consistent for a while now. So there you go.
I've been doing cast hands and cast faces for quite a while, and I had the hands for a while. This one's been about 4 years. This is my daughter, my granddaughter, and her husband. But I had no place to store them, so Anthony helped me learn how to. I'm still learning how to make a base for it. So now it has a place to store. I made a base for this set of hands, my granddaughter. And this is, I signed them all because it's art, right? This is the first little box I made after I took the box class. It just kind of kept getting smaller and smaller and smaller, but it's there.
This is the first bowl I ever turned. Wood Magazine, I was taking it for a while, and they had this in the magazine. The only thing is I didn't read the directions quite right. So the center wood right here is supposed to be canary, which is a lot lighter colored wood than what I ended up using. So, but it's mahogany, maple, walnut, and it's supposed to be canary, but I don't know what it actually was. And it's sunny.
I've signed my stuff various ways. Usually I've burned it and heated up something and touched the bottom. I used brass originally. And when I started doing pipes, I used steel so that I could pound it in and or make smaller things. And so I'm not certain this is the first time I've ever done it, but it's one of the first times that I've ever signed it with a Sharpie. And so I brought that just to say.
Okay, I've got a couple of things. One is I like turning green wood, and so I've got one of these warp bowls. And I sign it with my name, the date, or the year. I used to use the month, but I just use the year now, and the kind of wood. If it's something really interesting, then I'll give it a number and catalog it. And I decided to do something a little different as far as signatures. So this afternoon I made this little bowl out of pear with a walnut ring on it, and the ring is covering a piece of copper that I have signed with my name, the date, and the types of wood that go in it. So this is in keeping with my using metal in a wood lathe experience.
And this is for the 3D printed inserts. And the number for the winner is 359. Do you have a 359? All right, Bill. What close to this? Now incorporate that into the next project. All right. Well, let's get right over then to show and tell. If you have a show and tell item, step up and take your turn bringing them up here. Oh, I didn't ask, but does anybody on our Zoom call have any challenge pieces? Sometimes Ann pops in with, hey. Okay. All right. We'll get right into our challenge or our show and tell.
In keeping with Chris's shop cleanup and how the world to get rid of some junk, he gave me a whole thing of these little blocks, and I turned them into little ornaments. And I figured like you could give it away to kids 0 to 9 or 1 to 10. Give them the O. Yeah. He always knows I'll figure out something for something. And there's what, 3 packages of these things still?
Still more if anybody wants to try a project with blocks, let me know.
Yep.
This is a piece of mulberry. I've been working on my yard. And so this is a piece of mulberry. It's all the way back at the back fence. It had been wrapped around by some kind of a vine, if I remember correctly. And I cut the vine off and then turned it. And so I ended up with a small hollow form with a spiral cut down it. And I thought it was pretty interesting. This one, someone gave me this piece of wood. And this is the 3rd time I've made this kind of a bowl. I did hollow it out. It's hollow. It's fairly thick, but it's still hollowed underneath. And this starts out as all one piece, and I use a parting tool to cut a cone out of it. And then actually left something out. Before I cut the cone, I have cut a small tenon on it, a little dovetail tenon. And then when I mount it on the dovetail on the chuck, I can turn this outside of it so that it fits here and put another tenon on the bottom, grab it, and then turn the top of it. And I did the same thing with this. None of this was jammed. I turned a tenon on the bottom, turned the inside and the outside, and then just grabbed it with expanding the chuck into that opening. And I think it's interesting. I've made 4 of these now. This is the 3rd one. And I think what I'm going to do is put a handle on both sides of this so that it can also be proud. And I think that'll be fun. I did a demo in the Northland Thursday and made this up there. It's interesting. This nut, I have turned it before. I cannot think of what it's called. But it has these little tunnels in it, just like if you had a worm that crawls into the wood and then you turn it and you expose part of the tunnel. And that's what's happened with this. I don't think it's a worm. I think it's just natural, though.
Okay, well, I appreciate everybody that brought in the challenge pieces. I appreciate everybody that brought in the show and tell pieces. It's always fun to see all the different projects that are happening out there. And sometimes you don't get that opportunity So that brings us to the end of the May meeting. I appreciate everybody coming here. I would love some help getting the chairs put back and getting the equipment back out in place. And I hope like heck that I see you next month. So thank you all.